out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube. We're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And here is Stephen Van Tassel with today's topic.
Thanks, Frank. Stephen Van Tassel here, wildlife control consultant. Giving you another episode of the wildlife. Wanted to talk today about preparing for downtime. I know it's not a very wildlife related topic, but the fact of the matter is that there are going to be, as busy as people are, life happens when you find yourself in a situation where you're not out making money, but you have been. Sometimes it's things outside of your control, but you're stuck somewhere and you can't turn that into cash because something happened. Let me give you some illustrations. For example, what are you prepared for when your vehicle goes down? You may be on the road and all of a sudden the transmission blows. That's not something you're just going to pull out a screwdriver or a lug wrench and fix. You're going to be stuck there for a little bit. And as these things often happen, you can't just simply, the AAA or whatever organization you're using to pick up your vehicle, they're not going to be just waiting for your particular call. They're doing other things. All of a sudden, you may be waiting a half an hour, 40 minutes, 2 hours waiting for that vehicle to come out and tow you back to the repair shop. What about other issues, such as when you're bringing the vehicle in for service? When I was running my business, I was putting on about 3,000 miles a month, and so I followed the policy of getting oil changes basically every month, because I was putting on 3,000 miles. And what are you doing during that time? Now, if you are in a situation where you need to sort of mentally decompress, then you'd want to use that time to mentally decompress. But I'm going to suggest for you that you should be thinking about using that time to improve yourself. If you're on the clock, and I would encourage people to think about if they're self-employed, guard your time. Make sure that when you're on the job, you're on the job. And when you're off the job, you try to get off the job. And I know that's easier said than done. And I certainly am no great example of how to accomplish that when I was starting my business. But you need to do it. Learn from my mistake. Make sure that you work hard during the period of time that you're working. And when the end of the workday is done, you transition and be a husband, wife, spouse, father, friend, and have a life. Don't live to work, work to live. And so I'll leave that as it is. So if you're during working on the job and you have to take part of your job, part of what you need to be charging for is these periods of downtime when you're not able to make money because you have to do maintenance, right? This is what a lot of people don't understand when they hear about that $250 setup fee or consultation fee or whatever the case may be. They're paying for your time when you're sitting in a building getting the oil change for your truck, or when you're getting it cleaned, or you're getting it detailed, or you're pulling traps out and you're getting equipment and you're filling out paperwork. That's what they're paying for. But when you're in situations where you can't be actively busy, on your vehicle or making money, you're sitting in a waiting room, the lounge, waiting for your vehicle to be done. What are you doing to maximize that time? It's those little periods of dead space in your life. And so we basically have two different types of downtime. What I would call small periods of time, micro times, in the sense where you're, maybe only spending 15, 20 minutes waiting for your vehicle to be taken care of. And then we have longer periods of time, such as, let's say, you're injured, God forbid. And let's say you sprained your ankle really, really bad. And all of a sudden you can't go out in the field and do the work. What do you have planned for your life? What are you going to do to fill that time? And so I'm wanting you to take a few moments and contemplate for yourself, are you prepared for when downtime comes? Because it will come. It's not a question of if it will come. It's a question of when will it come? And are you prepared for it? So I'm suggesting you plan in two different ways. Number one, you make sure there is always something available for you in your truck and in your person that you can then turn around if you are finding your agenda has been disrupted and you are basically have downtime, that you're able to transition and use that downtime to productive use. For me, I'm a reader. I'm almost always carrying a book with me. There is something that I can do. Now, a lot of people have smartphones, so they're checking email, but a lot of times when I'm, looking at what people are doing, they're really not really doing anything productive. They're just playing, whether it be something silly on Facebook, or they're looking at images, or they're listening to music. And if that's what you want to do, well, that's fine, but understand that that's ultimately costing you money. If you are not continually trying to learn and trying to grow and trying to stress yourself a little bit to reach out of your comfort zone and learn something that you're not fully comfortable with, you are ultimately costing your money. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to understand, because they're like, oh, wildlife control, how quickly does it change? And it doesn't change that fast. That's true. But the business climate does. And I'm always amazed at people that I meet and where there's really no interest in them to improve their skill set, because as more and more people are getting into this field, it puts pressure on those that have been in the field for a very long time, and they have to stay on their toes because the new guys coming into the industry are taking the low-hanging fruit. So you have to ask yourself, if you're in this business for the long haul, what are you doing to be sure that your business has continued viability as the market changes, as we have a lot of young guys coming in and they're doing that squirrel job, or they're doing that mole job, or they're doing a woodchuck job, all of the easy work, and making money. And so that's bleeding you. What are you doing to ensure that your company has a big enough moat to protect itself from the competition? What are you doing to improve yourself? If you're not thinking about efficiencies on how to improve the efficiency of your company, the customer service of your company, the quality of your service, and how to get into niche markets where you can have higher profit margins, you are setting yourself up for failure, because sooner or later, if you're just getting, comfy in what you're doing, someone who's hungrier than you is going to come up behind you and take away market share. Now, granted, you may say, oh, I've seen that all happen. They're all out of business now. And that's probably true. A lot of these new guys come in, they don't understand how much work, they burn themselves out, something happens and their businesses go away. But that doesn't detract from the damage that occurred in your business during those few years where they were stealing market share. And are you prepared for that? So I'm encouraging you need to maximize the downtime and to at least turn it into something productive. So let me give you some illustrations. Number one, you need to be looking at how are you using downtime to improve yourself. Now, there's a lot of ways to improve yourself. You can read a book about salesmanship. One of the books that really impressed me was Selling the Invisible. And that's a book that I would certainly suggest, because what pest control ultimately is you're selling a service. You're not selling a tangible product that people can touch and hold and feel and put on a shelf. You're selling a quality of life, basically. So how do you communicate that to your client? So you can improve your sales. You can also look at personal self-improvement. Do you need to lose weight? Do you need to try to get healthier? Do you need to work on how you communicate with your spouse or your children or friends and neighbors? Those are self-improvement type things. You can look at how do things to improve your issues to improve your business. Do you need to be looking at legal issues? Do you need to be a better member of any associations that you're involved in? Do you need to study more about some of the technical aspects of your trade? When was the last time you read the label of a product you use a lot of? Now, some people get in the habit of every season they'll read it. Did you do that this year? Do you need to kind of review those labels? Sometimes, you read it, those labels are complicated. And sometimes when you read them the second time, you're like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time, because you're overwhelmed with so much data. You need to read it sometimes again. Are you taking notes on your material? Are you catching up with people that maybe you forgot? They make some phone calls. Use your cell phone. Make some phone calls with some people. Are you talking to clients, setting up new possibilities? Maybe talking to a business partner. Or are you talking to a competitor? Or if you looked about ways that you can maybe work together in a big bird job that you want to bid together on. Those are a lot of can you clean your truck? Can you organize your paperwork? Can you think about how you're going to grow your business, and just sit down as you're waiting in that waiting room, say, are there different places I need to work on my marketing? Those are a lot of things that you can do. Those are some ideas, and I'm sure as you're listening to this, you can think of others that you can think about, that you can do during those short down periods. Again, I like to carry a book with me. I encourage people to download. There's a lot of articles online, and just read it. You can say, oh, I know everything there is about raccoons. Well, the fact of the matter is you can sometimes read something from a different perspective and pick up a different nuance. And oftentimes, just simply rereading other material that you may know intimately helps reinforce what you know. And so you can give that information to your clients or to other people at a more professional, polished level. What about long-term disability? Or long-term downtimes? Let's say, like I said, you hurt your ankle. Are you prepared for that? Do you have things that you can do that are still going to help move your business forward? Granted, not at the same pace as you being fully healthy, but are you prepared for that? Have you thought about maybe working on your marketing materials? Are you able to do some additional reading? Are you able to do some additional studying? Are you able to maybe pile in all of your continuing ed credits while you're injured, just to have that off, so when you get healthy again, you don't have to worry about it for that particular licensing season? Do you need to look at your contracts again? Can you call your customers and say, hey, how are things doing? So you're starting to get some better feedback, because sometimes when you're in the midst of doing all this business work, you lose track of the customers that you already have, your hot market, where maybe you need to reach out to them again. Can you put together a newsletter? Can you write an article for your trade association? Are there people that you need to call? Maybe you just need to have some downtime to say, I'm injured. It's a vacation I wasn't planning on. Let me spend some more time with my family. I had a friend of mine whose vehicle, blew up, not literally, but it basically got so damaged that he wasn't able to really use it. And the repair process was a little bit longer because he broke down fairly far away from his home base, and so it was quite difficult, challenging. He had a lot of downtime. These things happen. And in wildlife control, we can have some fairly large driving areas. I know that some pest control companies, certainly out here in the far west, can have some pretty far up. We have a guy who services my town. He drives about 2 hours to get here. So, that's a pretty big service area, right? But for a lot of wildlife control operators and most pest control companies, their service area is nowhere near as that large. They may be spending 2 hours, but that's because of all the traffic and the traffic lights and the stoppages, right? So it's not because they had to travel 115, 20 miles just to get to the location to service the job. Here's some other ideas for you. I know many people in this industry they don't like to necessarily read, but there's a ton of podcasts. You're listening to one right now. Are there others out there? There's a ton of podcasts on Apple iTunes. You can listen to, even if you're not wanting to watch the video, there's people talking on various YouTube videos, but there's a lot of information out there that doesn't require your eyes to learn from. But they'll be challenging for you, and they will help stretch you. And sometimes all it takes is one idea. I tell people when they go to a training event, ask yourself this question: is there one idea that justified the cost of the trip? And I argue that for many trainings that people go to, certainly some of the ones that I've been involved in, the people that leave, they have at least one piece of information that will pay for the cost of that training in the coming year. We've had people attend some of our NUCO events. Let me do a little ad here for NUCO, of course, who have gone to our association meeting, our annual meeting, made a connection. Because the connection, they got a job that paid for the entire event for them. And the event is expensive. I mean, you're paying several $100s just to attend. Then you have to think about the hotel room and the food and the transportation and the lost business work. The one contact paid for the entire event. We've had another individual who because of something that he learned, was able to convince a client to hire him, and that paid for his entire trip. An interesting book I learned about, because I listened to a particular podcast. It's quasi video as well. And what they do is they actually summarize various types of business related books and personal development and mentoring and that sort of thing. And this guy's argument was, he called it the 1% principle. Try to be 1% better all the time. And that's just a small point. Think about that. We're going to be 1% better. How can you make your business 1% better? That is the kind of the goal that you want to have when you're trying to use this downtime. Yeah, there could be times when you're using the downtime just to clean up the busy work of business, right? Filling out that paperwork, returning phone calls, the daily drudgery of your job. I get it. But sometimes you're going to have that time to work on, are you going to be able to improve yourself 1%? And that's what I want you to think about using that downtime for. Doing something that improves yourself and improves the quality of your service, the nature of your business, improves that bottom line, or improves your quality of life. That's what I want you to focus on. Take advantage of those downtimes. Prepare for them, because they often come when you're not expecting it. And then, of course, I've already mentioned a number of things where you should expect it. When you're going to the doctor's office for that appointment, you're waiting in the waiting room, don't let that time slip away. The one thing we can't create more of is time. And I'm encouraging you here, take control of your time and always put it to some sort of good use. for the improvement of your business and the improvement of yourself and your relationships and your life. I'm Stephen Van Tassel, Wildlife Control Consultant. Hey, I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas and topics that you'd want to learn about, do drop me a line, stephenvantassel@hotmail.com, or I have my address, of course, at my website, wildlifecontrolconsultant.com. Love to hear from you. Love to get some ideas, get some feedback. Yeah, even the negative stuff, I'll take that too. Of course, it's not as fun as the compliments, but I'm hoping this is going to be helpful for you in the improvement of your business. I'm out. Back to you, Frank.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.